It's the season of the dinosaur. The world's top paleontologists dig into Canada's prehistoric past to unearth a living world buried in time.
Bingo! Got dinosaurs.
They'll battle heat and floods and the ticking clock as they track the footsteps of dinosaurs. And the most incredible creatures ever to walk the earth will live again on Dino Hunt. This week on Dino Hunt, two teams dig into Alberta, chasing two different horned dinosaurs. In a Grand Prairie riverbed, the Pachyrhino team tries to solve a 73-million-year-old cold case.
Why did a whole bunch of the same species die all at once?
Before the bones get washed away.
It was the worst day of my life.
And in the Badlands, the horned dino team is searching for the skull bones of a brand new species.
We've got the frill, we need the face.
That's been dead for 80 million years. Milk River, Alberta. This dry river valley in the Badlands is a hotspot for hunting dinosaurs. And for the next few weeks, it'll be home to the next generation of paleontologists. They're hunting a mystery horned dinosaur. The horned dino team is led by David Evans.
As I walk through the Badlands and see these fossils on the ground, I feel like I'm walking through an ancient landscape. One fossil find can drastically change the way that we view the evolutionary story.
At the age of 26, Evans was hired as head of paleontology by the Royal Ontario Museum, the youngest in the museum's 100-year history.
When I got the job here, it was like a dream come true. To say I was a kid in a candy store is an understatement. I pinch myself. I mean, what were they thinking to hire a 26-year-old? And I'm so happy they made that decision.
The Royal Ontario Museum boasts a century of major discoveries and some of the biggest skeletons in the country.
Some real big names have come through here, and they're big shoes to fill.
And now Evans is about to step up and step into those shoes. He's already onto a discovery that could be a real game changer.
So what we have here are the bones of a brand new species of horned dinosaur. And this is what we were able to excavate in our first year. We realized we had a configuration of these hooks and horns coming off the neck shield that was completely unique. And so we really can't wait to get into the field and try to find more. It's what I love to do. I'm not thinking about a legacy or making my name. I'm just thinking about the dinosaurs.
There's no guarantee Evans will find the skull bones he's looking for embedded in the mudstone, but he's willing to gamble another season to find out.
What we're really hoping for here is that we find the rest of the skull, in particular the horns over the eyes and the horn over the nose, because it's the shape of those bones that will allow us to more precisely place this new species in the family tree of horned dinosaurs.
There's a reason they call it the Badlands. The quarry can become a fiery pit when temperatures climb over 40 degrees centigrade. The horned dino team, mostly grad students, will be working in a harsh terrain under a blistering sun.
When you're actually down the quarry, you really bake, you really feel it.
They'll each need to carry 4 liters of water, or they won't make it through the day.
Heat stroke is probably the biggest danger out here.
David is joined by his partner, Michael Ryan, a Canadian paleontologist working for the Cleveland Museum of Natural History.
It's a very hard day, hot day's work ahead of us. The sun is bright, the crew is young and virile, we'll get a lot of fossils.
But it's just one specific set of bones Evans wants to find, the face of a new species.
This kind of represents our gamble. The big question for us now is who finds the first bone?
The first shovel hits pay dirt.
So we've got a little Tyrannosaur tooth here. It's a nice little find for the first few minutes of the day.
But Evans didn't come looking for tyrannosaurs. He's looking for proof of a new species of horned dinosaurs. Evans thinks his mystery dinosaur lived here 80 million years ago. The Badlands was a green, river-fed terrain with plenty of plant life for these 2-ton herbivores to graze on. 45 million years earlier, The first ceratopsians, called protoceratopsians, lived in Asia. Then they migrated to North America across a land bridge. They were the size of large dogs, with frills and neck shields, but no horns.
We know from the pieces we have that this is something really spectacular that's going to tell us a lot about the early evolution of the horned dinosaur family that includes the famous Triceratops. We're on the edge of our seats as paleontologists, because every bone that we find here is going to tell us something new about an animal that we didn't know existed 2 years ago.
A 1,000 kilometers north, another crew of dinosaur hunters makes their way to Grande Prairie, Alberta. It's a boom town, best known for oil and grain. And in nearby Pipestone Creek, an unsolved mystery, 73 million years old. Over millennia, this river has carved out something remarkable. A mass grave containing the bones of thousands of dinosaurs.
This bone bed is one of the richest bone beds anywhere in the world. Making the discoveries in the field is probably the most exciting thing I do, and that's something you never, ever get tired of.
As one of the world's top paleontologists, Dr. Philip J. Currie has made discoveries on every continent. He's the rock star inspiration for the dino hunter in Jurassic Park. In 30 years, he's discovered 25 new species and proved that tyrannosaurs hunted in packs.
Grande Prairie is a place where we've worked for more than a dozen years. We've excavated hundreds and hundreds of specimens from there. In fact, thousands of specimens.
But all the bones here come from only one dinosaur species.
Pachyrhinosaur's bone bed is fantastic for us because it tells us so much about the biology of one particular dinosaur, Pachyrhinosaurus.
Pachyrhinosaurus was a ceratopsian species, a relative of the famous Triceratops. These were enormous herbivores that lived in the Canadian North 73 million years ago, reaching up to 6 meters in length and weighing in at 3,000 kilos.
We have up to 300 bones per cubic meter in this bone bed. We're estimating there are thousands and thousands of Pachyrhinosaurus remains in this bone bed.
Currie's Pachyrhino team is mostly made up of grad students, like Scott Persons.
It's really strange that we have a whole bunch of pachyrhinosaurs in one spot and nothing else. So the mystery, if we think of ourselves as being sort of homicide detectives here, is not just why did a whole bunch of animals die, but why did a whole bunch of animals of the same species die, presumably all at once.
Currie's number 2 is 31-year-old Australian Phil Bell.
Phil was my mentor. I read about him in books when I was a kid, and to come to Canada to work with him, it was a dream come true for me.
Bell has been preparing a Pachyrhinosaurus skull pulled directly from Pipestone Creek.
Up the front end, we've got the beak, which is typical of these animals, these ceratopsian dinosaurs. The eyeball would have been right here. It was about the size of my fist. Moving back, we've got this big sweeping shield that would have protected the back of the skull, and a variety of horns that it would have used for display with other members of its herd, and possibly even to frighten predators.
This animal, like countless thousands of its kind, died swiftly and unexpectedly.
You're looking at a crime scene that happened 75 million years ago. All of the evidence is cold.
2 teams and 2 mysteries. In the Badlands, the Horned Dino team digs for a brand new species of ceratopsian. And in Pipestone Creek, Team Pachyrhino is on a forensic fossil hunt looking for clues why thousands of dinosaurs died in one killing blow. In the Badlands of Alberta, the Horned Dinosaur team is trying to identify a brand new species of dinosaur.
We've got the frill, we need the face.
And in Pipestone Creek, Alberta, Phil Currie's Pachyrhino team is hunting for answers to a 73-million-year-old mystery.
This is a mass death and a mass burial, clearly something that must have happened over a very short time. But what happened?
What wiped out an entire herd of Pachyrhinosaurs and turned these forests into a killing field? Currie's team has just weeks to find an answer. And after scraping off 73 million years worth of dirt, grad student Scott Persons uncovers a massive pile of bones.
I started out by finding the limb bone, and so I started to excavate around that, and that led me to the rib that's on top of it, and that led me to the vertebra, which has led me to this next rib. So digging here is like a game of pickup sticks. It's hard to find one bone you can take out without running into another.
We have 2 skull bones here, which we call squamosals. The squamosal is part of the frill at the back of the skull, and so you have these nice scallops along the edge. That helps us age this animal. We know it's at least a young adult.
Knowing the animal's age gets Currie that much closer to determining the cause of death.
It was what we call a catastrophic death assemblage, because it includes those medium-sized animals, which were the young adults and always the strongest members of the population.
What catastrophic event took down the entire herd, including its strongest members? So many dinosaurs buried in one spot gives them a clue about the herd's behavior.
We're probably looking at hundreds or thousands of animals in this herd. They could not have stayed in one place for very long. These animals had to have been moving.
73 million years ago, these dinosaurs would spend their summers in the Arctic. But as the long nights of winter approached, they'd migrate south to the fertile forests of northern Alberta.
An animal with such short, stocky legs probably wasn't a particularly fast animal, but it got protection out of being in these herds.
Despite their strength in numbers, the pachyrhinosaurs were still vulnerable to the ultimate predator.
So if you're a pachyrhinosaur, you're out there grazing, you're always mindful of a pack of tyrannosaurs.
The second most common thing in this bone bed after Pachyrhinosaurus are tyrannosaur teeth. They ripped apart the carcasses of the Pachyrhinosaurus.
So that is a tyrannosaur tooth. And those teeth were probably shed as a Tyrannosaurus came down to those heaps of carcasses and were munching on them.
These tyrannosaurs had left their calling card, and they were ripping up those carcasses pretty good. But it seems highly unlikely that the Tyrannosaurs could have killed that many Pachyrhinosaurs.
How the pachyrhinosaurs actually died is still a mystery. Any bones they uncover will eventually be displayed in a brand new museum named for their famous mentor, Dr. Phil Currie.
I've had my success in part because I just enjoy doing what I do. And for people to recognize that, of course, is a very humbling experience.
While Currie's Pachyrhino team struggles to solve the mystery of the Pipestone Creek bone bed, Phil Bell skims downriver searching for a new site and new fossils to fill his boss's museum.
We're on the Smoky River. We're heading downstream, uncharted territory, basically. No paleontologist has been there for the last 20 years or so.
Marine fossils discovered along this riverbank show that this entire region was underwater 80 million years ago. And today, Bell is on the hunt for a deadly Cretaceous-era marine reptile, the mosasaur.
These marine reptiles are 15-metre-long marine predators. Long necks, big sharp teeth. They were essentially the T-Rex of the sea.
Like sharks today, these creatures were perfect prehistoric killing machines.
Inside the jaw, we have not only these outer teeth, but along the palate, they have a separate row of teeth here. That ensured that anything that it put in its mouth stayed there.
The skeleton in Bell's lab is a replica, but for the Currie Museum, Bell wants the real deal.
No one has found a full skeleton yet, so ideally what we'd love to find is a complete skull and skeleton to really give an idea of what these animals were.
Bell wastes no time following his instincts straight uphill.
So I just lick it to clean it off. Paleontologists eat a lot of rock in the field. This area is quite dangerous. We've got overhanging rock and it's continually sloughing off the slope here.
Phil says he's got something.
Big mollusks, big bivalves. Would have had a good-sized oyster come out of that one. And then right in front of us here, we've got these tubes, which are burrows from invertebrates that were scuttling around on the seafloor at times. So where you find their prey, you should be able to find the predator. This is really great. Even these smallest pieces are informative for us. They tell us that we're in the right rocks, they're the right age, and where you find one, you can probably find others.
Bell didn't find the mosasaur skeleton he was looking for, but the day is still a success. He'll be back. In a sweltering dig site near Milk River, Alberta, the Horned Dino team is still trying to put a face on their mystery dinosaur. It could be a major discovery for Evans and his paleo partner, Michael Ryan.
Probably within the last 50 years to have a completely associated skeleton of a brand new type of dinosaur, horned dinosaur otherwise, I can't think of another occurrence right now.
Team leader David Evans is hoping he'll uncover a brand new species here. Evans isn't the first paleo to prospect these hills for ceratopsians. Almost a century ago, one of paleontology's early superstars made a name for himself during the great dinosaur rush at the dawn of the 20th century. His name was Charlie Sternberg. In 1937, he discovered 6 horned dinosaurs here. 75 years later, David Evans wants to add another new specimen to the ROM's collection and cement his own name in the history books.
It's going to be, one of the most exciting new dinosaur discoveries to come out of Alberta in many years.
And after 3 days under a roasting sun, the Horned Dino team has finally unearthed the first bone.
We think perhaps it might actually be just a section of a lower limb. So it's cool because we don't have much of the skeleton yet.
It turns out that our big gamble to remove almost half a hillside was a good one. It's just a huge relief.
It's not the frill or skull they were hoping for, but the bones still size up the mystery dinosaur. It's at least 2 meters tall, much bigger than its dog-sized Asian ancestor. They know that their dinosaur lived 80 million years ago in the late Cretaceous period, roaming these badlands when they were a sprawling green space, grazing the edge of an inland sea. They know their dinosaur is a ceratopsian, a horned dinosaur with a frill, like its cousin, Triceratops. What they don't know is what its face looked like, but they suspect and hope it looks like nothing anyone has ever seen before.
What really keeps us awake is knowing that there's something in the ground within inches of our discovery. We're either going to be validated for our 2 years worth of work, or we're going to come up flat.
As the days tick away, the 2 dino hunting crews keep digging. The Horned Dino team is still on the hunt for the face of its new species.
Wait.
While the pachyrhinosaur team will face off against the elements as they search for the answers to a prehistoric cold case.
The weather can be very harsh in Alberta.
In Pipestone Creek, the pachyrhinosaur team is chiseling into the quarry walls, searching for evidence of the cause of a mass killing.
Sometimes you get lucky and you can find the evidence that you want.
In Milk River, Alberta, the sun blazes down on the Horned Dino team as veterans and rookies dig side by side, both hoping to unearth a brand new species of dinosaur.
This is my first time out into the field on a paleontological dig. David was my professor in a course, and I was lucky enough to be able to tag along on this trip.
And anybody with a shovel or a chisel has the same chance at hitting pay dirt.
There's an old joke in paleontology that you're not a real paleontologist until you break something important. You're good. That's great. It's not broken at all, so it looks like part of a rib, potentially. Okay, go for it.
The bones are fragile. They may have survived 80 million years underground,
Be very gentle.
but they can still shatter with the twist of a blade.
Perfect. Nice.
There it is.
Perfectly done. Way to go.
Thank you.
Not bad for your first one, eh?
Looks like we have an almost full rib here, so I'm pretty proud of my work.
More and more of this mystery dinosaur is rising out of the ground, but its head is still buried in the sand. Graduate student Nicholas Campione may have found a clue in a color.
The rock is gray, the bone is kind of brown. Because of its shape, kind of flat, has the weird bumps, kind of knobs to it, it may actually be part of the skull.
This appears to have a slight semicircular curve to it. This is one of the elements that forms the eye socket. It doesn't tell us definitively which type of horned dinosaur it is, but it does tell us it's a horned dinosaur.
They know the skull belongs to a ceratopsian, but is it from the particular horned dinosaur they're looking for? The shape of its frill may provide a positive ID.
The frills are an extension of the top of the skull, so they extend back away from the body. Some members of the ceratopsians have the largest known skulls for any land-living animal that's ever lived on the Earth.
The bones of our dinosaur have been disarticulated, jumbled up, broken up, and deposited.
Like prehistoric forensic artists, if they can collect enough skull fragments, they'll be able to piece together a picture of that face.
What our challenge is to put those pieces back together and reconstruct the skull of our new dinosaur.
While Phil Curry tries to crack the Grand Prairie cold case, Phil Bell heads back to a dig site he excavated a year ago.
We were here August last year. Now we're returning to collect the last of the bones that are still in the cliff.
The site is just off a busy nature trail, but not everybody who walks it is a nature lover.
Yeah, there's a spent shotgun shell. So people camp and drink and fire off their guns. It's a bit of a lawless area, really. People have no respect. None of this is safe anymore. So this is a site that we found last year. We only found it because this boulder had actually collapsed off the cliff, and that had exposed part of a skeleton of a hadrosaur, a duck-billed dinosaur.
Hadrosaurs were large duck-billed herbivores that roamed in huge herds. Some adults were 9 meters long, and the largest weighed in at over 5.5 tons. But when Bell came to reopen the site, somebody had beaten him to it.
When we came up this slope, we'd seen that the plaster and burlap jacket that we put over the bones to protect them had been torn off and was thrown into the back of the quarry here. All the bones that were exposed, anything that they could get their fingers on, had been literally torn up and shattered and thrown down the hill behind us. It was the worst day of my life. I was close to tears. The amount of work that we'd put in here, and then to see such blatant disregard for the natural world, I just don't understand it.
Bell and his team will try to salvage the rest of the hadrosaur.
Now we need to dig this back out and retrieve the bones that are still inside. Just uncovered the pubis. This is part of the pelvis of this animal. It's actually heading back into the cliff here, so we're going to have to take out some of this to try and get it out safely. Obviously, we don't want to burrow too far under this, because then we're in trouble.
They coat the bones in plaster to protect them on their journey back to the lab.
Can you manage?
I think so. I'm just trying to
Do you want me to put it in your arms, or you have
No,
it?
I'm just trying to get a good grip.
Yeah.
We've got part of that bone already in the lab that we had to take out with the rest of the skeleton, so we're going to piece it all back together now. This is part of that same animal that was vandalised. That's become a big story around here, so I think people are going to be quite eager to see it.
Back in Pipestone Creek, the Pachyrhinosaur team has to hold off their hunt. There may be a storm headed for the dig site.
Our big problem right now is the weather system's pretty unstable, and we really need some kind of protection over the site. Otherwise, every time it rains, we have to stop work.
What's the next step, boss?
We'll put a tarp over top of the whole system, and then we'll have a tarp extending out over the quarry so that we can work when it's raining.
Now Curry needs to protect the site, or he risks losing any clues to what killed a whole herd of Pachyrhinosaurs 73 million years ago.
Having all that water there with the mud that it carries in, you can refill in a quarry very quickly, and then of course we have to dig it out again.
Mother Nature is on the move, and Phil has no idea how much of his site will be there in the morning. And in Milk River, the Horned Dino team sees the face of its mystery species rise from the earth for the first time in 80 million years.
Now, we're going to see just how much of it is here.
In the Alberta Badlands, the Horned Dino team gets their first glimpse of an unknown species.
We hope to find more of the skull, but there's always the chance that we'll fail.
But in Grand Prairie, Alberta, heavy rains have pelted the region, causing major flooding. In the Pipestone Creek bone bed, the pachyrhinosaur team's dig is in jeopardy. The rains triggered a mudslide that totaled the dig site and almost buried the crew.
I was in the quarry with everybody else when this wall was caving in on top of us. So at that point, we basically all ran out of the quarry and in 2 seconds filled back in a week's worth of work.
I would guess it was something like 10 tons of rock slid into the quarry once again and now has to be moved.
It's very wet, very slippery, and very dangerous. All you need is an inclination of ½ degree from horizontal, and you're going to go down.
They've only got 4 more days to work the quarry, so this is a major setback for Curry.
We would normally be excavating bones right now, and we're not excavating bones right now, we're still digging.
Before they can get back to digging up bones, they've got to dig themselves out. In Milk River, the quarry sizzles like a skillet in the burning sun. David Evans and his Horned Dino team are searching for the bones of what might be a new species of dinosaur.
Even in Canada, the heat can be stifling. It's not unusual to have 40 to 45 degrees Celsius days.
But they can take the heat because a picture of their mystery dino is finally coming into focus.
This is part of the neck shield, part of the skull of this new horned dinosaur. And what we're looking at is paired bones that form the sides of the frill. And as we go up into the back part of the frill, these small bumps actually develop into these huge hooks that project forward over the frill, unlike anything we've seen before.
But what was the function of the ceratopsian frill? There are 2 schools of thought.
Horned dinosaurs are unique in having these large, weird ornamentations coming off the back of their skull. Perhaps those large frills were for protection. You can imagine a triceratops being attacked by Tyrannosaurus rex. That frill would have protected the back of its neck.
It turns out not all ceratopsians could have used their frills for defense. They were too thin to offer much protection. So, what were they for?
We're thinking now that the large frills and the ornamentations are actually used for recognition between species.
In the late Cretaceous period, these forests were overrun with dinosaurs. And it wasn't always easy to find your species, or a mate. So maybe frills evolved just to be frills. At the dig, the race is on to find more key pieces of the skull.
So far, so good, but we're really hoping to get those horns.
In Pipestone Creek, Phil Curry's pachyrhinosaur team struggles to get the dig site out from under. Flooding has caused a massive mudslide, dumping 10 tons of rock back in the quarry, burying any clues to what killed an entire herd of pachyrhinosaurs.
Once you get down to the last few days, then you're wishing you had a lot more time.
In a race to make up for lost time, the team hammers away at the earth, desperate to bring up more of the pachyrhinosaur bones.
The bones here could belong to 1 animal, or it could belong to 11 animals, or any number in between.
Curry knows these horned-faced herbivores moved in huge migratory herds. But what lethal force of nature trapped thousands of dinosaurs, leaving them with no hope of survival? Seasons of sifting through the bone bed allow Curry to rule out 2 possibilities.
We have, for example, associated with the pachyrhinosaurus bone bed, volcanic ashes. And that suggests, well, maybe the volcanoes of that time produced so much ash that they smothered these animals, so they died in that way. However, we don't have an awful lot of ash in the bone bed itself, so this seems unlikely. Forest fires are another possibility. We know they happened. We do find charcoal in a lot of our bone beds, but not in this particular bone bed. This is the reason you keep going back to a bone bed year after year, because you may not have the answer. It's challenging us to try and come up with an answer for why so many animals are together.
Curry and the rest of the pachyrhinosaur team has just 2 days to find the missing evidence in the Cretaceous cold case. And in Milk River, David Evans and the Horn Dino team need just one more fossil to identify their mystery dinosaur.
With any luck, we'll pull the horns out of here.
In the Alberta Badlands, David Evans and the Horn Dino team are still looking for the horns of the unknown dinosaur.
It's going to be, one of the most exciting new dinosaur discoveries to come out of Alberta in many years.
The Pipestone Creek dig has been a tough, dirty job. The pachyrhinosaur team still hasn't solved the mystery of what dropped a herd of dinosaurs in their tracks on this very spot. After days of backbreaking work, Curry's crew puts down their tools to support their mentor at a fundraiser for his museum.
It's more a formal kind of black tie event, so definitely dressed up really, really nice. Well, as nice as we can be with, coming fresh out of the field.
For Curry, fundraisers are just another way to finance his digs. And the Dino Ball is a chance to spread the word and raise some cash for the museum.
Ready as I'll ever be, I guess.
And for his students, it's a chance to get cleaned up and hit the town.
This is one of the farm girls' dresses. It's from Tiffany's.
All for the job.
Once the Dino Ball's in full swing, everybody gets to relax and enjoy the party. The next morning, no stranger to swinging a shovel, Dr. Curry breaks ground on the museum that will bear his name.
Our namesake, Dr. Philip J. Curry.
The reality is that this area is incredibly rich in dinosaurs. You have forests covering dinosaurs, so it's a little harder to find, but still, if you know what to look for, you're going to find them.
But Curry still hasn't found the answer to what killed a herd of late Cretaceous dinosaurs, and time is running out. Like a detective, he needs proof, and he has just 1 day left to find it. Back in Milk River, David Evans' Horn Dinosaur team is pushing to complete the composite sketch of their dino's face and find out if they really have discovered a brand new species.
Lots of skull bones in this area, so with any luck, we'll pull the horns out of here.
The size and placement of the horns will help identify their mystery ceratopsian.
We've already uncovered vertebrae, ribs, parts of the skull, parts of the limbs. We know way more about this dinosaur now than maybe we even had hoped. But we're still looking for the horns to put a face to our new horned dinosaur.
No horns, no frill, no new species for Evans and his crew. And in Pipestone Creek, the storm that almost washed them out might just give Curry the clue he needs.
Hey, maybe that's actually what happened in our dinosaur quarry.
In Milk River, Alberta, David Evans and the Horn Dino crew are in the final stretch, hoping to uncover the face of a brand new species.
Just a matter of time, really, until we get all the pieces.
But what will this dino look like? In Pipestone Creek, Alberta, it's the final day of digging for Phil Curry's pachyrhinosaur team. What lethal force of nature killed thousands of pachyrhinosaurs right here 73 million years ago?
With so many bones in one place, it clearly representing a place where these animals died almost instantaneously.
Any animal that moves in groups will encounter situations where they die together en masse. And we can look at modern environments and modern animals, and we can see that this is the kind of thing that happens very frequently. A very good example of that was in northern Quebec in 1985, where over 10,000 animals died in a very, very short time. I mean, we're talking hours, essentially. As best as I can tell, the animals in the pachyrhinosaurus bone beds probably drowned, because it's the best explanation, it's the simplest explanation.
As the massive herd searches for a new food source, they're caught in a storm. Desperate to escape the rising waters, they try crossing a powerful rushing river.
Maybe these animals were in a system where the waters became too high for them. They panicked, they started pushing each other underwater.
The herd of 4-ton dinosaurs are suddenly out of their depth, out of control in the churning water. Unable to swim, unable to breathe.
The animals in the Pachyrhinosaurus bone bed are associated with moving water, and moving water buried them.
When the water receded, it exposed thousands of carcasses. The bodies were scavenged by tyrannosaurs. Then they lay buried by the sands of time for 73 million years. It may seem incredible that a single flood could wipe out a herd of 1,000 healthy animals. But after their own brush with nature, Curry's crew knows only too well how powerful and deadly a flood can be. Mudslides and rain cut short this year's dig. With so many bones in the ground, the team has only scratched the surface. And they know they'll be back in the future to dig deeper in the past. A 1,000 kilometers away, Evans and the horned dinosaur team plaster the bones they've pulled from the Badlands.
We got critical pieces of the frill. We also got a piece of the nose horn. We actually even got one of the horns from over top of the eyes, which was one of the prizes that we were looking for. So this here is probably the most important fossil that we collected all season. This is the center point of the skull, the midline. And then on this side of the midline, you can see there's a spike or hook coming off forward. And you can see it even better on the other side. So you've got the two hooks coming off, one either side. They're about the size of your hand. I would not be surprised at all if this piece right here actually attached to the other sections of frill that we have in the lab and actually gave us a complete picture of a single individual frill for this new species.
If the frill pieces match, David Evans will have discovered a brand new species of ceratopsian dinosaur. It will be months before David can unpack his prizes at the lab in the Royal Ontario Museum. Here, the bones of the unknown dinosaur are pulled from their protective plaster jackets.
The bone that Ian is preparing is the back middle part of the frill. And it's this bone that allows us to say for sure that this is a brand new type of dinosaur.
It's a delicate operation. One slip could shatter months of work. But in the end, the prized piece of frill surfaces.
What's particularly exciting is that on either side, you've got well-developed hook-like ornamentation.
If this frill piece matches with the specimens Evans collected on his last dig, it'll reveal the first traces of a face, the face of a new species.
That is pretty amazing. Yeah, this clinches it. With the pieces that we found last year, we're in a position where we can actually start to put together those pieces into a very good idea of what our dinosaur looked like. I've worked with my artist to give a general view of what this new dinosaur would look like. Do you want to see it? Well, here it is. This is the first reconstruction of the south side ceratopsian. It doesn't have a name yet, but it has these wicked drooping hooks all around the back part of the frill. It has quite long horns over the eyes. Looks like our dinosaur has quite a big nose horn, and it's a little bit unexpected. With this bone and this complete picture of the ornamentation on the frill of this early horned dinosaur, it just confirms that we have a brand new animal to add to the dinosaur dictionary. Every species that we find tells us something new about the diversity of past life on this planet. It's going to be a fun challenge to describe and name this particular animal.
The unnamed new dinosaur will go on display right here at the museum.
When I design an exhibit, I try to take myself back in time to when I was 5 or 6. Huge dinosaur lover. What would blow me away? To be able to see a new species so quickly after it was unearthed, that would make an impression on a young, budding paleontologist.
This is why David Evans became a dinosaur hunter, for the rush of a new discovery, to witness a prehistoric creature come to life before your eyes. On the next Dino Hunt, in the Badlands of Alberta, a young paleontologist is looking for the last piece of a mythic puzzle.
It wasn't collected with a head or a tail club. I'd be happy to just find the hole where it had been collected from, because you never know what you're gonna find.
If they can solve a 100-year-old mystery, they might find the missing bones from a 74-million-year-old dinosaur. And in a secret BC location.
Stop filming.
A husband and wife team have uncovered the province's first complete dinosaur, lying right where it died.
There's no roads into the site, so we have to take it out by air.
They can get it out of the ground, but can they get it in the air?
We'll be worried. We'll be worried, we'll be concerned.
Fearsome and always fascinating, dinosaurs thunder their way all through the weekend on Eden for our Dino Week.